Hi builders, today we are doing something a bit different. I've been playing around with Cursor and its new agent feature, and honestly, it's been amazing. Cursor makes it so much easier for you to build apps, even if you're not very experienced with coding. And in this video, we're going to build an app from scratch using Cursor and its new agent features. And I'll also share a very clear framework that I've tested myself to build my own apps that you can follow to better build your app with less errors, even if you're not a coder. Because one of the problems that I see with people trying to use Cursor is that, first of all, they don't have a clear picture of how they want to build the app, what do they want to use to build the app, and what ends up happening, because it's obviously a language model, it ends up making up stuff. And so if you don't have a clear picture of how you want to build the app, then the language model is going to be let loose, and it might create files or edit files that it doesn't necessarily need to do. So we're going to go through that framework here as well. Okay, so let's get started. So as you see here, the future of coding will be in plain English, and I really believe that's true. There's another video that I posted about a meeting or a convention that the CEO of NVIDIA went to, and he also mentioned this. He mentioned that the future of coding will be in plain English, because over the next years, the agents and the language models are going to be so good at interpreting code from natural language that it's all going to be in plain English, essentially. So yeah, the future of coding is here. There's no need to type code manually anymore because you have editors like Cursor. And because of that, the barrier of entry to build full software has been reduced to an all-time low. As long as you have good prompting and some overview of how the app should be built, that's the only necessary thing you need to use Cursor and build an app successfully with it. So what is Cursor? If you guys don't know, Cursor is an AI code editor that you can work alongside with to build anything that you want with AI, right? Whether that be a Chrome extension, a full stack web application, the list goes on. Basically anything that requires code. And the great thing about Cursor as well is that it's a fork of VS Code. And when you start using it, you'll see that a lot of the features that it has resemble Visual Studio Code. And that's a good sign for many programmers out there that currently are using VS Code. The transition from using VS Code to Cursor should be seamless. So there you go. And let's talk a bit about the agent feature. So this is a great addition to Cursor, because before you would have, there's two types of language model that you can interact with in Cursor. The first one is a chat model, so you can ask questions about your code base and it will answer back. And then the second one is the composer, and the composer is able to add or edit files, and also I think delete files. And the thing with the previous composer, which is what you're going to use mostly to build these applications, is that it wouldn't be able to interact with the terminal and a few other problems. So this is solved. Now the agent can interact with the terminal through the composer. It can make also changes across multiple files at the same time, which is amazing. It just saves you time. And the best part is that now it has full context of the project. So every time you talk to it, if you put it on agent mode, it's going to index your entire code base in its prompt, or in its in its memory, if you want to call it like that. And the way it used to work before is that it would push random parts of code that it thought it was relevant into its tokens, but that doesn't need to do that anymore. So that just means that the suggestions that it offers, in order to add or edit or delete files, is much more accurate. So essentially, with this, now you can get access to a junior full stack developer that works side by side with you. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to use Cursor and its agent feature, as well alongside the framework that I talked about. So if you're new to web applications, because that's what we are going to try to build today, if you're new to this, well, you only have to understand that there's a front end, so the visual part that you can click stuff with the mouse if it's a web app, and then you have the back end. So if you could imagine a scenario where you have a website with which you can look up cars, okay? So the way this would work is you would put in a search term, such as a car model, right? That is all typed in the front end. Then we get a search query. Let's say you're looking for a Corvette. Well, that search query is going to be sent via an API or similar way to the backend, and the backend is where all the logic and all the databases are. So the search query is probably going to go through a database, and the database is going to get all the relevant information about any Corvettes that they have in their database. So it's going to pull the images and the necessary descriptions. It's going to pull that and render that in the front end, and then you will be able to see the results of that Corvette that you were looking for. And then the API just acts as a bridge in the middle to connect the front end and the back end. And you can also use it as part of the back end to connect to some APIs. For example, OpenAI APIs. If you've seen other projects that use Python, imagine, I don't know, there's a chatbot that someone have built on Python. In order to do the completion or generate that language model output, you will need to contact OpenAI's API. So that's what it's doing in the background. So as well as facilitating the communication with the backend, it also allows you to interact with third-party services like OpenAI or Reddit. Cool. So, the front end and the backend, I tried to look for a good diagram or a good illustration. These are the best that I found. So hopefully after my attempt at describing how they all connect, this makes sense. So we have a web app that touches the server, and then the server interacts with the database to perform any queries necessary that needs any database information to be pulled back onto the web app or the mobile app. If this is a bit confusing for you and you don't understand much, I left the video, so you will be able to download this presentation, and then you will be able to click that link with that YouTube video, which I think it's a good explanation on how front end and back end work together. And once again, if you're new to just the whole programming, coding world, you will, do the code in this thing called an editor or an IDE. And inside the terminal, you are able to run certain commands. Right? Git is kind of an online repository where you can store projects, right, that you do, applications that you build or whatnot. So these are example commands for you to locate, first of all, that repository, that place where you're storing the project, and then to push any new changes that you've added on top of that project. Then, if you want to navigate to a certain folder inside the editor, then you can do so using cd and then the name of the folder. And then these two you are going to see a lot now. So if you want to run the front end, you do npm run dev, and if you want to start the back end, then you do npm start. Cool. So now that you understand some of the basics, we're going to go now and have a look at that process that I was telling you about to work with this cursor agent. So the way this works is we're going to plan and prepare a thing called a PRD, which is going to be a markdown file that we're going to store inside the editor, inside Cursor. PRD stands for Process Requirement Document, and we're going to use this inside Cursor so that the agent can refer to it, so that we can build the project or the application step by step. You're gonna see now it's going to make more sense. So once we prepare this, then obviously we can start chatting properly to the agent in Cursor and have the agent build us the basic front end. Then we're going to use Supabase to connect everything on the back end, and then we can refine the UI. And then this is optional. I'm not gonna go through it today, but essentially, if you want more control on what the LLM outputs and you want to refine that process, then it's ideal that you connect to some form of monitoring platform such as Langsmith. But anyways, if you're curious about that, then go ahead and look it up on Google. So in order to write the process requirement document, first you need to have a draft PRD. So you can go into ChatGPT 4o, tell it what you want to build, and then it will build kind of a scope of the application, right? What the application needs to have to be useful. Then this is optional, but ideally you would do some research and understand what kind of packages can you use to build the core functionalities. And then what we can do then is pass that refined version of the PRD, right? That V2 of the PRD. And we're gonna slap it in O1 so that it helps us design a project structure and a bit more defined PRD. Then we pass it again onto O1 so that it gives us the fully refined version for what the requirements should be for the app. So we're gonna have a look at this later, but you can just have a look at it here. The instructions, right, which are going to be, this is going to be the PRD file. We're gonna call it instructions. I missed an S, but it's fine. It's going to have these sections. So we're going to describe what the project is about, a list of the main features, ideally in order, right? In a timely order. So if you imagine the entire process of a user, logging in and then doing a recording and then logging out. So capturing all that process in a chronological order. Then once again, you can include documentation of packages that you're going to use, OpenAI, if you're going to call a specific API or a specific tool, you can add it here. but it's not necessary because O1 can help us fill this out. And then current file structure. So this is important for us to do the final PRD. So maybe I didn't describe myself really good, but based on the draft PRD and the research packages, if you do it, we are going to get a project structure folder. And yeah, so it's not the entire PRD, it's just the structure that we're going to get. And then after that, we are going to write out the requirements. And you just got to make sure that, if you use 4.0 or use O1 or whatever, that it retrieves it to you in Markdown. Well, these are things that you can then read once you have access to the presentation. As I said, you can do this with O1 later. And in order to show the project structure inside the editor, we're going to use something called Tree. So Tree is an add-on that you can use in order to print out in the terminal a structure of your file. So it's pretty useful to then use as reference to create your PRD. And this is how it looks. Cool. So now we are going to go into Cursor and we're going to set everything up. So you're going to go to the Cursor website first of all. You're going to create an account and then download it for Mac. I'm not sure if they have it for Windows, but you can go and check. But yeah, I think you can try the free version. The free version is pretty generous, I would say. And then if you want to get a bit more involved, then that's when you would have to pay. So the pricing is, yeah, it's not that bad to be honest. $20 a month. For what it does, I think you're getting a big return. Okay, so first of all, I am going to show you the transcription app that I've been building. So let's go ahead and open this. And let me just run, so cd backend and then npm start, cool. Then we're going to open another instance of the terminal and then we're going to do cd frontend and then we are going to do npm run dev. Cool, so now it's running on localhost. I just basically want to show you what I have currently. And you see this, well, let's, and here is my local instance, right? I'm running it on the server is running on my own computer. And yeah, this is localhost. So it's a local instance. And yeah, you can see welcome to transcription app. Then I can sign using my Gmail, which is amazing. We're using something called Clerk. And here we are. We can select the workspace. Then I can start recording. But before I do, I need to add an API key. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. But yeah, anyways, I'm gonna save the API key, perfect. I can choose my workspace and then I can start recording. Hello, hello, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. How is it going? And there you go. You see that it transcribes it. It used my own API key to access the OpenAI Whisper model. And then it did the transcription, it gave it back to me, and then I can also listen to it. I'm not gonna put the audio now because I have my mic connected, but you get the idea. And we are going to try to build something a bit better than this. The reason I was talking about the framework before to use Cursor a bit better is because it took me a long time, longer than I expected. It took me 3 days. I expected to do it in 1 day, but instead it took me 3 days to build up to this point. And the reason being is because this time that I tried Cursor, I did not have an understanding on how I wanted the complete app to look like. So I just gave it a basic description here. So you see here that you have a chat and the composer. So the chat is where you ask stuff, and then the composer is where you can create or delete or edit the actual files. And so, I would just go to the composer and say, well, I want a transcription app. I wanted to have this, that, and that, but it was very all over the place. And as I explained before, the problem with this is that if you don't have a full idea on how the app should look like and a very detailed structure, then you're just gonna wander off. You're going to wander and build side functionalities and then, realize there's other things that you should have built and try to go back. And, although the composer helps, it can have a hard time understanding what you want to do. So having a good structure to it, a PRD to then feed onto the composer is something that has helped me with building quicker. So I'm going to show you how that works. So forget about this. Let's close this. Although it was great to see. We're gonna build it from scratch. So let's open folder and let's create a new folder. Let's call it transcription YouTube demo. Perfect. So let's go ahead and open that. So as you can see, we have nothing here. And so the first step is going to be to set up that instructions.md file. So this markdown file, I'm going to make sure it says instructions.md. Okay, cool. And we are going to use a structure for it. So as you saw before in the presentation, we are going to discuss about these things in the file. Okay. So overview, functionalities, documentation, and current file structure. Why are we writing it in Markdown? Well, these language models have a better understanding on how Markdown works just by default. So that's the reason we are using Markdown. Is language models understand, the headers, and if you're going to have a structure such as bullet points or so on, and if you have to add any bold letters, everything is done on Markdown because that's what language models interpret better. Let's go ahead and do project overview, and then let's do core functionalities like that. Then let's go ahead and let's do documentation, and then current project structure. And this is just going to help with keeping track of the overall project structure, so that in case we go a bit crazy and we go a bit sideways, then we can refer back to this and see how it differs from this reference structure. So now that we have this, we're going to go and complete the first part, which is project overview. Okay, well, let's start by pasting the project overview in here. By the way, it's your responsibility to put in the project overview that you feel makes the most sense. But for me, underlying the key workflow and the tech stack could be a good idea. And yeah, just a little overall description here, what the app is about. But yeah, that's it for project overview. If you don't have a clue on how to do this, well, ChatGPT is your friend. So, tell it what you want to do. You want to build a project requirements document, and it has a project overview, it has a key flow, and it has a tech stack on this first part, right? The project overview. So put that in there and then just describe a little bit about your application, and you should get something like this. Make sure you write it in Markdown. You add it here in Markdown since it's .md. So yeah, that's the first one. And then the core functionalities, you should spend a decent amount of time in this section because you're going to use it to go through the project with the composer or the agent. So we're just going to refer to it as we go. So make sure it's as detailed as possible with every single step. So make sure that every single step goes in accordance to how the user would interact with the app. So, first step, they go through authentication, right? They sign in using Google or similar. Then they present it with the main page. And then what do they do in the main page? They go and record, right? They press the record button. What colors does the buttons have? Just an idea, but mainly describe the actions in detail. So let's go ahead and do that. So core functionalities, login and user auth, OpenAI setup, the workspace, recording management, as you see, the transcription functionality, and then data management. And then we're going to go, the documentation, we're going to fade it out later. I'll show you how. And then project structure should be a screenshot of the files in the cover project, but we don't have anything yet. And I'll let you know why in a bit. This is because I don't want to use the composer to build a structure for the application. I want to use something that's not an AI model. So what we're going to do is, if you go here, you can toggle on and off the composer or the chat, right? So you have the chat and then you have the composer. Over here, you can, I don't know if you can see, hopefully you see, I'm going to try to zoom in a bit if I can. Well, I can't. But if you see here, you look closely, you can add files by name so you can refer to them. Obviously, I only have one file. But on the composer, if you select the agent, you should be able to have an overview of all of the files. We don't have any files now, but just letting you know, we're going to see it later. But anyways, we are going to use Next.js 14. Next.js is a React-based framework. So I'll show you that right now. So there you go. Next.js is a framework based on React, and it just allows you to build really fast web applications. Then we have ShadCN, and ShadCN is a library of already built UI components that work well with Tailwind CSS. Then we have the actual Tailwind CSS, which is a framework, right, for just styling in an easier way. And then we have Lucid icons, which honestly I've used in the past, and I think they look amazing. Once again, they are pre-made buttons and icons, so we're going to use these in the build of this app. Okay, now we're going to go back into here and we're going to use the terminal. Just go to your root directory. I mean, you should be already in your root directory, and you are going to put npx shadcn at latest initialize. And now we're going to go through some steps to set up a predefined file structure, right? Not by AI, but by ShadCN, right? It's a, ShadCN doesn't use AI to build these structures, right? This has been a product of years and years and years of actual developers creating these file structures. So let's press yes. We're building all these file structures now. The path users does not contain a package.json file. Would you like to start a new Next.js project? Let's select yes. What is the name of your project? Well, it's going to be transcription test, YouTube, put it like that. And now we are creating the Next.js project. And you can see here that it created a new folder with all the necessary files, right? It's doing it as we go. So now we need to select what style we want to use. Let's select New York. Let's go with neutral. Would you like to use CSS variables for theming? Let's select yes. And that's it. There you go. So all the files should be there without having to rely on a language model, right? Which we can get errors with that. So now we know this structure is the one to use because we have used an installer that is legit. Okay, now we are going to create a folder inside the transcription folder, the one that has been made by ShadCN. So we're going to select it and then we're going to go new folder and we're going to call it instructions. And then we're going to put that file that we made at first inside instructions. Okay, so let's move it inside. Amazing. So now we are going to select cursor and then the folder name. So in this case, it's transcription test YouTube. So what we basically have done right now is we are entering this new folder, this new directory that we have created with ShadCN, and yeah, we're in here. So now we need to create a .env file, not a folder. We need a file, .env.local. There you go. And here we're going to put all the OpenAI keys and whatever we need, right? So we'll figure that out, but we can leave it in black now. Now we can open again the terminal. So we can open the chat if you want and the terminal right here. And we're going to select, we're going to put npx ShadCN at latest. Add. And now we are going to access ShadCN again and just select any of the components that we need. Right, in this case, we're going to press space to select. We want button, we want a card. And that's it. So let's hit enter. And now we are going to get pre-made ShadCN components. So these components are reusable and they're great because they come directly from the website. So they're under here. So now the composer can use these as reference, right? It's not creating anything out of thin air. Now we have some point of reference. So there we go. Now what we want to do is we want to install Brew. Okay, so this is a utility that is going to allow us to create a file tree, as I explained before. So this, right? So we're going to install the utility itself. There you go. So that's that. And then we're going to add the tree. So let's get one of these. Let's get TreeL2. We're gonna get only the first two levels of the files, right? So if we click once, so this is the first level, whatever you see here. And then if you open this, this is the second level. And then if this one has another folder, then we're going on to the third level. I think it should all be within, well, we have this as well, but we don't want all, we don't want any of these. These are things that we're not gonna really see. So let's limit this to the second layer. So we're gonna grab tree. What was this called? My mind is between Spanish and English. Apologies. Well, whatever this is, okay? The minus sign or whatever it is. So TreeL2. So TreeL2. And as you see here, we are going to get pretty much... Oh, of course. Actually, let's do I just mentioned. I don't want to involve this node modules folder. It's just things that are a bit we don't need to use. So we are actually going to use tree/L2. Tree-L2, and then we are going to also not consider the node modules folder. So we are going to put node modules like that. And then we're gonna get a tree without the modules folder, which was causing the tree to be super, super long because we are referring all of the different folders inside node modules, which we don't need to refer to. So you're going to go ahead, you grab that, then you go to instructions, you go to instructions.md, and then you are going to paste it here below current project structure. Yeah, so that's where you're gonna leave it. Now, the next step is to grab everything you currently have here, okay? Everything you have. And now we are going to go to O1, ChatGPT O1. It has better reasoning capabilities. And you're going to paste the entire instructions.md file right here. So let's delete that like that. Perfect. And now we are going to add this. Above are the details of the project I want to build. How should I structure my project files? Create as fewest files as possible. And actually, because I found out that the less files that the composer creates, the better, the more accurate, and the less errors you end up having in the app. So press enter and let it cook. Right, so we wrote this so that then O1 starts thinking about how it should build the app. But now we're gonna give it a bit more of a detailed prompt so that it actually builds on top of the original PRD that we had. So let's go ahead and copy that right here. So help me add details to the original PRD that give clear alignment to developers who will implement the project. Don't create actual code, just create the PRD, include the files. Cool, so we're getting all this. I forgot to ask it to, give me everything in Markdown. That's a big mistake of mine, but we're gonna do it now. So it seems like OpenAI is really bad at converting large amounts of text into Markdown consistently. So what we're going to do is copy the answer that you got from the PRD. Let's go ahead and open Claude. This is a free version. Go ahead and paste that there and then say something like, help me convert this text into Markdown. All right, so just gonna go through it. Perfect. So now you are going to copy that. Come back here, Control Alt, and then delete everything and then paste what you got from Claude, right? This Markdown version. Right, so you're gonna Control S, hit save. And now we are ready to start building with the composer. So if you don't see the composer over here, just go ahead and do Command I and it should pop up on the right side. I think by default it's on the right side. And you have the ability to chat, as I mentioned before, and this should be meant for just having conversations about trying to understand something within your project and provide possible snippets to add in some of your files and so on. And then you have the composer, which is responsible for building, editing, deleting files, and this is what we will be using most of the time. And if you see here, hopefully you can zoom in or something, you can see that you have the normal version and you have the agent version. As described before in the presentation, you should know by now what the agent does. And what we're going to be doing is refer to it. You can change the language model if you want. So go to cursor, then settings, then cursor settings. And you can also add a prompt for the language model that lives inside cursor. You can give it stuff like, make sure you give me clean code, consider stuff during error fixing and the building process. But yeah, once you're done with that, then go ahead and select and deselect any models that you want to use. I have my models because I'm in the pro version, and you can also add images. So once you have that done and you have that sorted out, then you are going to head and select agent. Let's get started. So let's say let's build a web transcription web app using based on instructions.md. Let's build sign-in page. And let's build also the workspace. Once I run the front end using npm run dev, I want to see the clerk auth page first, and then I want to see the main dashboard page where all the folders and recordings will be. Make sure you are using Next.js 14 and clerk library that is that works with Next.js 14. Cool, I think that should be good enough. So let's hit submit. So it first checks what I have in the workspace. In the current directory, we have 23 files or folders. We're going to read the local environment file, and we can see that we have the Clerk keys already. Clerk is the provider we're going to use for the sign-in page to do authentication. Supabase we're not going to use now because of time limitations. So it's trying to create a dashboard page now. Let's see what it's done. So, okay, you're setting up the layout, the middleware, and making sure that everything is reflected within the main page, page.tsx. It's checking for necessary dependencies. Cool, okay. Okay, so if this is all done, then let's hit accept all the changes. And then we should be ready to go. So let's do npm run dev. Let's see what we got with a single prompt. So port 3000 is in use because probably the agent has access to the terminal and it ran on port 3000. So let's use 3001. So let's see what we get. We see nothing. Okay, we see a white page. Amazing. Let's let the agent know. I only see a white page when I run the front end. Please fix this. Let's modify the middleware, accept that. Let's make sure it uses the proper Clerk components. Sounds good. Let's update the dashboard page so it's properly protected and styled. Cool, accept those changes. Okay, so it has the correct environment variables. And now let's stop this terminal instance and let's run it again. And let's check port 3001. Okay, we have something going on. So you have just transcription app, that's all we have. Well, please set up the sign in with Clerk and the workspace based on instructions.md, and I only see a blank page. I only see a blank page now when I should see Clerk off, sign in. That should be good. So currently we are trying to do 2.1 and 2.2. Okay, accept that. Okay, updating the home page. Let's update the dashboard page to make sure it's properly protected. Okay, makes sense. Let's accept those changes. Now we're making sure that we are, okay, so it's telling us to install all the required dependencies. Let's go ahead and do that, just to make sure we have everything. Okay, it's all in dependency tree. So using next 13, okay. Let's try to do npm run dev. Let's see what's going on. Okay, so we have a dashboard page now, just white. All I see is that I'm in the dashboard page route, dashboard, but it's white. It's fully white and there's nothing there. On the terminal, I see the following. Something that you can do as well is go to inspect, then to console and check for any changes that are happening here. So let's see what it's going to do. Let me try with the JavaScript version. Let's do client-side rendering properly. Right, so this is a relatively long process. You know, obviously my instructions.md is not the best because I didn't spend much time on it, but I suggest that you spend a decent amount of time, cross-check it with other models, with 4.0, 01, and so on. Let's delete this Next.js folder. And now let's do npm run dev. Let's restart the development server. Right, let's stop it again. Let's npm run dev. I don't want to have a million ports. So let's do 3001. Okay, let's go to localhost 3001. Cool. So now that you see we have a dashboard, great. We have an OpenAI API key, and then we have a safe key. We have a recordings tab right here. Okay, cool. So also we are signed in already using Clerk. So let's go ahead and sign out and see how that looks. Cool. So we have a sign in to this transcription app. That's amazing. Let's hit inspect again just to have it open. Make sure to go to console just to check any errors here that might appear in the browser as well. Okay, so now we can sign in. Perfect. We can sign in using Gmail, and here we are. Okay, well, we are missing the recording button, so hopefully if we add the OpenAI key, that should work. So let's go ahead and add that. Save key successfully. And I see that we don't have any recordings. So that's because we're not there yet. So we're gonna go to section 2.3. Let's get a new terminal and let's go to the recording sessions. So let's add the recording functionalities. Perfect. The sign in and dashboard look great. I don't have the start recording and stop recording buttons. So let's go through the next sections of instruction.md, 2.3 and 2.4. Not optional transcription. I want it to be mandatory. Once again, remember that I build a transcription very quickly just for demonstration purposes. So I'm not expecting it to be the best app ever, but yeah, let's see. We might get surprised. So let's see how it works. But yeah, you get the idea. So, you go through each section and then you make sure that section works. And then you go to the next section. All right, so let's build a dashboard. Let's build a sign-in, then let's build a dashboard, then let's build the recording functionalities and whatnot. And then you can add your own little corrections. Cool. So now we're using the get display media function that is going to allow us to record. So let's accept the changes. Let's see how it goes. Console. Right, so it remembers the state. So it knows that I logged in already to localhost using my Google account. So it's great because it remembers that I added the OpenAI API key. So we can just get to recording. So let's see if this works. Let's try the entire screen. That's going to be interesting. So this one. So now I'm recording. There's a recording option right here. So if you see, let's see if I can zoom in. There you go. So it's doing that as well, which is amazing. And now let's go to other tabs to see if it actually captures the recordings and whatnot. So cool. Let's go back here and let's stop the recording. Amazing. So we get a playback of the actual recording of the entire screen, which is amazing. Let's see if it captured my audio. I have my microphone on. So let's see. Let's see if it captured that. Failed to transcribe the recording. Let's understand. Let's try recording again. I don't think my API key is wrong. It's just the logic regarding the API key in the background that might be going wrong. So let's just understand a bit more of the error in the console. So blah, 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 blah. Let's go to clerk. Okay, cool. So let's transcribe, see what happens here. So let's dig into this problem. We can see the actual lines with where this problem is coming from as well. So let's screenshot this and let's send that back to Cursor. Okay, it's working great. Now there's an issue with the transcribe button. Look at the image that shows the error that I get when I use the transcribe button. When I click the transcribe button. The transcribe button. Okay, let's have a look at this. So the issue is that OpenAI's Whisper AI doesn't accept WebM files directly. So we need to extract just the audio from the recording and convert it to a format that Whisper accepts. Makes sense. Makes sense. At least it's not a dependency problem or something like that. It's just having to add additional functionality. So let's go ahead and add that. Yes, makes sense. WAV is the format that Whisper accepts. Let's accept all that. And let's see. So the audio will automatically be extracted from the video, converted to WAV. Okay. Sounds good. So let's record again. One, two, three. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Stop recording. Sheet is in bottom. Let's say the transcribe now. So failed to transcribe the recording. Okay. The audio file is too short. The minimum audio length is 0.1 seconds. Right, so I found what was going on. So now you can record the audio and you can hear it. There's sound on it. But then when I hit transcribe, it doesn't transcribe. It says that the audio file is too short. So let's try to debug that. I don't want to spend too long here because I think you get the idea. Let's go back and let's come here and let's put I recorded the audio successfully, but when I hit transcribe, it says that the audio is less than 0.1 seconds long, when the video and audio go for around 13 seconds. Oh, go for around 13 seconds. Why do you think this is? And give me a fix for this. Okay. So let's see what it suggests. Okay, so there's something going on because we're only recording 100 milliseconds of the audio for some reason. So we are fixing that right now. So we're gonna update the transcription function and yeah, let's update page.txx for that. So we're making the changes and there you go. So we made some changes. Now we're extracting for more than 100 milliseconds. Apparently that was a setting done within the project that we have right now. So now, if you accept the changes, let's perform a full reload. Yeah, okay, it's doing it by itself. Cool. Now, we should be able to record audio now. So yeah, let me disconnect the mic and you'll see the process now. I am back. Right, so we have audio, right, you can see. The video goes for, oh, weird. Okay, I mean, we captured the guy talking. It's just, yeah, the slider thing is just a bit retarded right now, but that's fine. Okay, so let's see how the transcribe function works. Right, now we're sending us a request to OpenAI, you see. Invalid file format. Okay, that's fine. That's a good error to have. At least we know the error. So let's just make a screenshot and let's paste that here. And let's get this right here. So there seems to be an error in the way that the audio is formatted in when sending to OpenAI. Let's put great. We can see that the audio is attempting to be sent to OpenAI API service. There seems to be an error in the way the audio is formatted and refer to pictures, images attached. Okay, perfect. Let's hit submit. So it understood the problem. Now it's going to update the page.tsx. So yeah, we added a proper MIME type and then yeah, some cleanup. And we're using WebM format instead of MP3. Cool. So now let's accept those changes. And I feel like the local host is gonna refresh again. Well, yeah, couldn't transcribe. It's loading again. That's fine. We'll go through that same process again. Okay. So let me disconnect my mic just to make sure we capture the audio. So now we should be able to hit transcribe. Once again, failed to transcribe recording, invalid file format, supported formats. Okay, so what's going on? Let's have a look. So we're sending a post request to OpenAI, but it's a bad request. Well, let's just pass it in again. So let's kill the terminal instance. Let's reload it again. Here's the error messages from the browser. There you go. So let's go ahead and see what that does. So hopefully you guys have a better understanding now. Okay, a proper WAV. Okay, gets raw, then transforms to WAV. Check the browser console. The audio blob size should be larger than before. Okay, so it's telling me some stuff to check. Let's accept the changes. And let's do npm rundev now. Okay, yeah, let's use 3001, that's fine. Okay, remembers that I have the API key, cool. All right, I'm gonna disconnect my mic again, sorry about that. Okay, so this should be, it's funny how it's going slower and slower and slower as it approaches the end. It's very funny. It should be obviously like spaced out evenly, but I'm not expecting anything. I mean, this was built by AI in such little time. But anyways, hopefully you have less than 30 seconds. Okay, 21 seconds. Cool. So let's transcribe the data. Okay, so we get the transcript. There you go. So it works. Okay, hopefully, as you see, going through this process with Cursor is not the easiest. If it were to be an easy process, then everybody would do it, right? You need to have a little understanding on how these things work in the background, and hopefully the presentation made sense. The idea that you have a backend where you process all the data and connect to APIs, you have a front end, which is what you see, and then you have some form of authentication like Clerk, so that the users can check in with their Google accounts, or they have their own user and password. But what I didn't show you is I think we didn't do the folders. So, ideally we will have a selection of folders and say, okay, well, I want the recording to be saved in this folder and whatnot. But I think this is amazing for the little time that I spent building this. If you want to, add more things, then you would add, as I mentioned before, Supabase on the background, so you can store the recordings, the transcriptions, the API keys from the user, so that when they log in again, they don't have to do it. I mean, in this case, it's a bit different. And any sort of data that, you want to keep once the user logs in a second time. But this becomes a bit more relevant when you push onto production, right? Push an app to production. So you have that backend with Supabase, you have the authentication as well, Clerk, use Clerk. And then you need somewhere to host the app. So some options are Vercel. Vercel is a place where you can do that, or you can do Render. So, you can put in, you fill in the details and host it on a server. Because right now this is hosted locally. So something like this is what would allow you to, for other people to see it as well. Also, you can run Docker containers and whatnot, but I think it goes out of the scope of this call. All right, guys, something that I forgot to mention was that if you want to save this on GitHub, make sure you create a README file, right? A Markdown file, so that, people or you, remember how, this works. And then, make sure to create a git ignore file as well, so that you ignore any unnecessary files. You need to include the .env file where you have your API keys. And then go ahead and create a nice license file. And then these are the controls. So before we move on, let's go to GitHub and create a new repository. Okay, so let's call it test transcription YouTube, if you want, test transcription YouTube. So test transcription YouTube is right. Just test, let's make it private for now. Add a README file. I think if I add it here, okay, we'll just leave it like that. Create a repository, and then, once you create the repository, then you can see that you have a URL. So you're gonna grab that URL, and you're gonna use it when we're gonna add origin, okay? So let's do git initialize, then let's do add everything, so dot means all the files. And then we're gonna make an initial commit. Okay, this is just the first push, the first version of the file, if you may. So so we're creating all that. So now we are going to add this. So git remote add origin, git remote add origin, and then the URL that I mentioned before, where you pick it from here once you create the repository. So let's go ahead and press enter. Cool. And then let's do git branch main. So let's push it to the main branch. And then let's do git push origin main. Perfect. So now that you have that, you should see the files here. Let's refresh this. And there you go. Here are the files that you built using Cursor right here. Okay, great. So that's pretty much it. As you see, we built this transcription app right here. And now that we put it on GitHub, you can just keep building and building and building. And whenever you think you have version 2 that works, and it has everything that you want, then you can go ahead and and go through the Git actions, right? The same Git actions. So yeah, this is it. So I think I'm just going to leave it there. But you can see that we managed to do some user authentication logic using Clerk. It's really easy, right? You can sign in using Google. We also have the OpenAI key, so we need to put it in before we even start recording, right? If I remove the key, then they become deactivated. So that's amazing. Then we actually are able to record through tabs. We record the audio and also the video, and then we're sending the audio to a transcription service. In this case, it's an audio model, right? Whisper, and then we're bringing that back and we're rendering that below the video. We also are able to play back the video, which is amazing. The slider doesn't work well, but and then you have a name, the name of the file. So that's been defined in the backend. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe. If you want to see more videos like these, let me know. Also, if you didn't like the video, let me know why in the comments below. And that's pretty much it. If you have any other content suggestions, let me know. And yeah, so if you don't see me, in any of the other videos in this year, well, I wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. All right, stay safe, guys. See you in a bit.